Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. Thanks for joining me for skipping lunch. This time, actually at lunch, and not, as someone pointed out in my Facebook group, skipping brunch when I started an hour early last week. But this is the time where I like to skip lunch and talk about some cool things going on in the tabletop role playing game world. Some updates to Kickstarters, maybe some stories from my table, or quick looks at some things that I might not have had the opportunity to do full out reviews for yet, or may not get to at all. And that's kind of what I'm doing today. Wanted to start out with some news, so this should be fun. Hey, King Eric, how are you? Good to have you here always, as I'm looking at my chat over on the side. And yes, this should have the chat thing cycle through. So if you want to watch the live stream chat later, it should work. I don't know why it didn't work last week, but then again, I started an hour early, so who knows. But let's talk about some things that are going on. Last week, I talked about the Tales of the Valiant Kickstarter. That is continuing. They have, I think, 20 some odd days to go at this point and have cleared, I think they're at $800,000 at this point. So they're doing rather well. If you want to check out an interesting take on an iteration of 5e, as Wizards of the Coast continues with their work on 1D&D or 6e, which is what it really is, even though they don't want to call it that, this is a nice way to be able to continue to play with that and not have to pay Wizards of the Coast a red cent, or to get new players on board without having to pay Wizards of the Coast a red cent. That would be a really good idea. This is one I'm still on the fence about backing, because 5e is not my favorite system to run. In fact, it is my least favorite system to run. And while I enjoy playing it every now and again, it's not something I think I want to spend a long time playing at this point. It's just hit point bloat and the way combat works. It doesn't capture my attention the way some more simple games do. But it's a good game, and if it's something that you like and want to introduce other people to, if you want to keep going with 5e, Tales of the Valiant is probably your best bet to go. I do have a link to the Kickstarter in the description of this stream. You can check it out there. I want to put it on screen, though, because I've got new Kickstarters to talk about. Not really new, but new to this stream anyway. I want to talk about Knave. Their second edition is coming out, and they have only 27 hours to go. They have raised $600,000 at this point, which is really, really cool. And let me see if I can scroll down here really quick to show you. Let's interact. And it's a very inexpensive Kickstarter. You can see that the pledge for the digital is only $20. And for the standard physical edition, it's only $35. And that gets you print and PDF, and it's due to ship December of this year. You want to go with complete digital that gets you some extras, or a premium physical edition that's going to cost you $50. This is a cloth-bound stitched hardbound case binding. Actually, really, really nice look that they have for that. Knave is interesting because it has such great character generation tools, which is really cool. And it is a very streamlined, fast system to play from the short videos that I've seen. In fact, Knave is probably the reason why I'm not going to be backing Tales of the Valiant, because I want to back that and I only have so many dollars to go around. I also want to pick up the new Book of Quests for Easy D6, as well as some of other cool things from DriveThruRPG. And with my limited bucks, I can only make them go so far. Knave might be where I'm throwing my money at this point. If you like an older style game and want to support this really cool project, that's a really cool one to do. The link is the link is in the description below. I have to remember to talk slowly, which is really fun. I always want to talk fast for some reason. Hello, Mage is Musing. Hi, Mage. Let's see, everybody's here. Avenue Studios. Hi, glad to pop in for a bit. Hi, Avenue Studios. Nice to have you here. Dave, I hope your pool is filled. I'm just looking at stuff. And Avenue Studios, we backed it. Looking forward to trying out the playtest. Avenue, are you talking about backing Knave or backing Tales of the Valiant? I'm interested to know it for that. And there are too many games, Knave. That is absolutely true. I have so many things. I've backed like 4 Kickstarters in the last 3 months at this point, and I'm probably going to back 1 or 2 more. I'm also eagerly awaiting Land of Erm to come out so I can review that eventually. there's just too much going on, and I also don't have enough tables to play at to run all these things. It's a mess. Some of my games I'm actually going to start shutting down long-term campaigns, or at least my Monday one, we've already done that, just so I can run through and cycle through a bunch of these different systems. It's kind of fun. Let's look at some other news coming around the web at this point. First off, Pathfinder had their, is it PaizoCon online last week? And they went into a little bit more detail about their remaster of their core rulebooks. Again, this is a much more cinematic, heroic version of a Dungeons and Dragons type game. Not necessarily my cup of tea, but it's a big name in the business, and a lot of folks from 5e jumped to that during the OGL debacle back in January. But they are doing a remaster, which is one of the reasons why you can't find the core books in print right now. They went completely out of stock, and they decided they were going to be running a remaster it. And so this is what they're doing. It is pretty much by their own description, and I put a link to the rules lawyer. Man, that's a tongue twister. I've never said it out loud before. Below, and he describes the PaizoCon, and part of the interaction there is one of the developers saying, we would call it maybe 2.1. It's not 2.5, so there's not a lot of drastic changes, but it's a 2.1. The reason for this is that they are stripping any lingering reference to OGL material out of Pathfinder. And this is going to have some interesting changes in the game. They're also doing some tweaks to some of the core classes. They're doing things like pulling out alignment. That's no longer going to be part of Pathfinder. And one of the things they are doing, because it's completely tied to OGL, is they're removing the drow completely out of Pathfinder lore. I also put a link to that article in the description below. And again, there's people going, oh, Paizo's going woke. I just, can they, oh, they're going woke, chorus, please just be quiet now. Like, okay, we get it. We understand. It's fine. This isn't what they're doing anyway. They're removing it because there's just literally no way to do a non-OGL version of the drow. I don't know if they're in the Creative Commons SRD, but even if they are, they just don't want to touch that stuff anymore. So they're literally retconning the stories of drow out of Pathfinder lore. It should be an interesting take to see how they manage it and what they're going to do to replace it in the future. Are they going to come up with another version of elves? Are they just going to use serpent folk to take that place inside their lore? It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. I'm kind of interested in the remaster at this point, even though I'm not really interested in that style of play. I want to see what they come out with. So, Paizo, if you're ever listening to this, I wouldn't mind a review copy. That would be fun. Let's see what we got going in my comments at this point. Already play the games I like. What I want are reasonably compatible supplements and adventures. Yes, Mage. But I'm like an inveterate collector. So, which is one of the reasons why I put off getting back into tabletop role-playing games for so long, because I know how my brain works. And I just want all the games because I want to read them. I want to see the differences and maybe hack together things. So that's kind of my difference for that. Did you just call me a knave? Yes, I'm calling you a knave. And yes, you resemble that remark. That's great. Don't forget Dan Cross Game. Dave, Dan's, I need to get that on the link to that. If you want to put it in chat, go ahead. That would be really cool. Because it's an interesting, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I do need to remember to throw that up there. It's for those who aren't wondering, Dave and I are on the Scabbard Discord server, and one of the members of that had put out a Kickstarter for that, and I completely forgot about it. So go ahead and put that in the link. Also, if you, what am I putting else? Oh, and I did do the Tales of the Valiant Kickstarter. So those are my three things. The Knave, the Pathfinder 2.1, and the Tales of the Valiant are my three news bits that I picked up over the course of the week. If you have others, like Dave put out in the chat, go ahead and share them. We'll talk about them. Should be a lot of fun. Also, last week I got to announce it wasn't really an announcement, but got to talk about the impending premiere of Candela Obscura. And I actually used my Prime Twitch subscription to subscribe to Critical Role for the month so that I could watch Candela Obscura. Couldn't do it live because I play on Thursday night, but I watched it over the next couple of days. And it was fun. It's definitely a horror vibe. It's got very much a link to a Call of Cthulhu type game. It's Victorian, it's turn of the century, it's steampunkish horror film. It's all this sort of stuff mixed together, but it's very, very interesting. It got a really cool set. This is not just a side project for them. They put in a lot of work into making this set work with flickering torch lights in the background, and there's this moving clock behind Matt Mercer as he's GMing the game. It's really well done. I thought the characters were neat in their development. They all had their own particular takes on thing. And for me, Robbie Damon's he had me cracking up entirely because he plays this socially inept professor who has literally no social graces whatsoever. And he steals scenes that he's really involved in. And when he's matched up against Ashley Johnson, who plays this street tough 19-year-old guy, they go back and forth complaining and laughing about philosophy all the time. So it was a really interesting game. And they do have a quick start guide on their website for Darrington Press you can download. And I actually might be reviewing it soon because it's a different take on a D6 dice pool system. There's incentive in some respects to fail. Not necessarily fail, but you would take a failure because it's going to get you a resource back. I like game styles like that. So there's enough role in it that there's randomness. It's not just everybody tells a story and I always succeed. There's a lot of narrative flex in it, which I like. And I'm looking forward to actually going through the Quick Start Guide a little bit more in detail. The layout is beautiful, by the way, and maybe talking about it with you on this channel. So keep that in mind. And if you want to go check out Candela Obscura yourself, look on the link below to download the Quick Start Guide. However, you cannot watch it on YouTube until, from the information that I was able to glean, June 8th. Unless you are a Twitch subscriber, you will not be able to watch it on YouTube until then. Why they're waiting extra, I don't know. Maybe it's just because this is a once a month show, and so they can afford to wait the extra week. Maybe they're doing some more post work on it in order to make it as good as it can be. It's one of those things. Yeah, Candela, yeah, Chuck. Candela Obscura was really, I thought it was really well done. I like how they did magic, how it has this tainting effect on you. What do they call it? Bleed. It was really cool. Laura Bailey's character was also really well done. And I always forget the woman who is in Exandria Unlimited. I think she plays the mom in Ms. Marvel, and her actress's name is like going out my brain. I need to remember it because she's really good. She plays kind of like the high-powered businesswoman / veteran of the movement of Candela Obscura. And she does a really good job. Why do I not know her name? I need to put that in there, and that is completely on me. Really, really cool. But check it out. You really do. All right, so let's take a look what I'm doing for my preview this week, because this is called the Dwarven Pickup Truck by Silver Mountain Games, or Sharp Mountain Games. Let me make sure. I'm terrible with names if you haven't figured that out yet. It is by Sharp Mountain Games. Why do I want to call it Silver Mountain Games? Anyway, let's take a look at it. So here it is. And this is done by a guy named John Fredericks, who I'm going to have on this stream very soon. He's a school teacher. They just got done their school where he teaches. And so we're going to be able to work this out in the next couple of weeks. I'm really looking forward to having him on. Although my schedule is going to be changing after next week, because school is about to get out and they go to all half days. So I can't skip lunch at this time because then my 5-year-old will be wondering where I was. So I got to work that out a little bit as I scratch my nose. But this is the Dwarven Pickup Truck by John Fredericks and Sharp Mountain Games. You can see that it is written for Labyrinth Lord and Basic Fantasy RPG. It's compatible with both those systems. And I love the little line here, limited drivetrain warranty available. This is a really interesting concept. The pickup truck in question is this dwarven construct that a guy who runs a foundry in a town decided he wanted to be able to get his metalworks to market faster. And so he created this pickup truck that is powered by meteorite metal and 4 tensors floating discs, or just floating discs because we're out of D&D land, floating disc spells that make it go. And he's engineered this together. It's absolutely hysterical. No, Laura Bailey, I got it was the one who played in Ms. Marvel. I'm gonna look up her name. But so this thing is the Dwarven Pickup Truck, and it's absolutely hysterical. So when you see the cover, and incidentally, John did all the artwork for this for this adventure. So it might not be like the Larry Elmore esque artwork, but it's for him just to do this all by himself. That's really really cool. I can't do anything like that. Really neat. But when you see that on the cover, you realize there's going to be a little bit of ridiculousness going on, and you will not be disappointed if you're expecting that. Um, there's the back cover. That's a Naiad or Naiad. I always forget how to pronounce that name. Who is one of the character NPCs that you encounter in the game? You can see that its fur level is about 3 to 6. And it's a interesting story. Yes, thank you. And Anjali, what is it? Baimani, Anjali Baimani. I don't want to butcher her name. She's fantastic as this character. She's also fantastic in Exandria Unlimited, but she's really good. Um, no problem, Avenue. Looks good to have you here, and I would love to have you back sometime. Thank you so much. Avenue Studios checking out for their own recording. You got to do what you got to do. Let's get back to the Dwarven Pickup Truck. So this is where we're looking at. You can see that it's got a little map here. Although, interestingly enough, this is more if you were going to be trying to do an adventure or a campaign based out of this town called New Dawn, which is where you start. Um, but it doesn't have the actual adventure locations on it anywhere that I could find, which is kind of interesting. So the setting is neat. New Dawn is a town that is a newer city. It's in a region that has been recently reclaimed after a long war with the prerequisite evil undead overlord and temples and things like that. So there's all these ruins around the area. Why it's a good place to start a campaign. And the hook is that you get called to talk to a local dwarven blacksmith, Brian Goldforge. He needs to find this lost pickup truck. I mean, this has got a dude, where's my car vibe to it. And apparently Brian's son very ill-advisedly took the truck out. It's a secret project, and he just took it out with his friends across the river into the woods so they could party. And when they came back to pick it up later, it had been stolen. So very much, dude, where's my car? And Epic Solo, it does have a yellow submarine vibe. That's really cool with the cover art. And this is the plot. Like, you're hired to go find this truck. Now, this is one of the interesting things about the game. And if you see the layout, there are a couple things in the layout. Again, John did this all by himself. I can't knock it all that much. But little things like having the box text break columns, the little things like that, they kind of made me go, just because that's the way my brain works. I want the box text to all be on one side, but its layout is hard, folks. You can't really beat people up too much about it. And he put this adventure out. I don't have anything on Drive-Thru RPG, so it's a little bit of a ding for me, but not much. But you do need, as the GM, to read the box text. Do not think that you can skip it and then understand anything that's going on, because this box text here are literally the questions that he thinks the players might ask about trying to get started in looking for this truck. And it's got the adventure locations in it. He mentions the tribe of Alberlins, who are humanoids with owl heads who have pet owl bears. These look like a lot of fun. So that's the idea. Layout is super hard, Dave. It really is. So that's that's one location. But if you don't read these questions here, you're going to skip over and going, wait a minute, why am I going to this camp? What am I doing? He also mentions that there's a naiad, however you pronounce that word, pond, and she keeps watch over the woods, and maybe she can help you out. And he'll draw you a map to that, so you get to put it wherever you want on the map because it's not actually marked. And so that's the types of things that you need to read the box text for, or you're just not going to know how to run the adventure. You don't have to read it out to people out loud. You can paraphrase it, but it also has the adventurer notes in it for you so that you know what you need to be focused on. That is one thing in the layout of the book that I would change. Rumor text is over on this table. It's the same kind of idea and stuff like this. That's notes for the GM and not necessarily descriptive text for the players. That probably should be in a different type of call out so you know what it is and why it's important. Again, layout's hard. Just go with the vibe as much as you can, but it's cool. And here's more artwork in it. It does have some nice artwork in it, which is fun. You have some nice NPCs to meet in the town of New Dawn. The rumor table. This is something that folks who play 5e or came out in more recent editions might not be as familiar with. But rumor tables used to be a huge. Someone's running a drill outside my window now. But rumor tables used to be a huge thing in old school games. I might have to go and it's a saw. It's fun. All I hear is saw. Can you guys hear that? Sure. Use interference correctly without anything you can mispronounce with absolute confidence. That is absolutely true, Mage. So the rumor tables used to be this huge thing. My bizarro mind is being distracted by a saw outside, but as it comes back, as soon as I talk, I'm gonna have to close my windows. But the rumor tables used to be so important. Like Keep on the Borderlands is one of the most famous of the rumor tables. If you're familiar with that old school module, it's a neat way to make the conversation happening in town more alive, because even in our world, people sit around and they pass on stories, and some of them are partially true. Some of them are just complete fibs and made up. And there's all these old wives' tales that people pass on one to another through generations of families and other organizations. It's really cool. Is it yeah, but it's quiet enough. Yeah, it's driving me nuts. I might have to go close my window, which is kind of fun because it's literally right outside my window. And I have 3 windows over there just for the breeze. This is fun. So it's really neat with the rumor tables. I'm going to pass through. There's the Naiad who exists on the back, or is on the back cover. You do have versions for both extending AC, so you have their +2 hit, and it gives you a 2 hit AC down on the bottom, THACO. Down on the bottom, so you can run both ascending and descending armor class using the game. It provides you the information that you need in order to do that. That's really fun. I like the maps that he's developed here. Kind of get a real world vibe to it. He does a really good job. Here's the Alberlin's camp. And again, he did all this work himself. So I'm always impressed with people who can do stuff like this. And the Alberlin, they look cool. I'm going to use them at some point because there's stats in the back of this adventure for it. Really cool. Is the night? It's spelled Naiad. So it's not a dryad because it's not a tree spirit. It's a lake spirit. So that's the idea. And discuss. Thank you for the wind. No, I'm. The first time I played with Ascending AC, I was like, oh, well, this is what I wanted all along. Sorry, Mage, I got to disagree with you there. I know how to use THACO. I just like the other one better. Here's a nice cave. That's kind of like the last cave for you. And it gives you the description. This is a classical design box text with the description so that you can either work out your own description, paraphrase it, or read it out loud, depending on how you want to do it, with information behind it on how to run that particular area. There's the big bad. It got some new monsters in the back. There's a golem truck, like an old thing that the dwarves made that you have to maybe turn on and combat or use as an ally. I forget what you do, but it's really kind of fun. Back there are some pre-generated characters. There's the Alberlin. This has actually got Chris Gonnerman's style of monster stats here. There's heavy lines in between, not heavy, but thin lines between each layer. Each level of the table, each row of a table. I like that presentation for monster stats, by the way, so I'm glad that John picked it up here. Pre-generated characters are interesting because you have things that I've never heard of. Is anybody familiar with Labyrinth Lord? Are these classes or races that are from Labyrinth Lord, or did he just make them up on his own? You have Carven, a wooden construct race, which I've never seen before. Wanderwood, which are basically like a version of a Trent. or an ent. We won't get sued by Tolkien's estate today. That's the idea. I just saw a drawing of Mirror Universe Spock. Yes, you did. You did right there. So these are kind of new character races. A halfling thief is not necessarily something that you find in Labyrinth Lord. But this is kind of fun. I like the layout for this. It has that go down on the bottom, but you also get your weapon 2-hit bonus depending on your level. That's all built in as well, so you can run both. It's nice, and of course this was released before the OGL debacle. This is still OGL. One of the things I will ask John, let me get back to my camera. One of the things I'll ask John when I have him on, hopefully next week or early the week after, is what he plans to do with that. Is he just going to leave the OGL in place, or does he plan on moving more forward with a Creative Commons style license as he goes forward? But this is a nice, inexpensive adventure. I think it's for only $2.99. I did put a link to buy it. It's like $2.99 for the PDF and only a couple bucks for print. Let me get that up really quick. Let's go. There we go. Dwarven Pickup Truck. I get the things. $3.50 for PDF. It's only $5.99 for the soft cover print with the PDF with it. $6 for a nice adventure, 32 pages. It is way old school. Probably doesn't have a slipcover case with maps on the front, unfortunately. We can't do that anymore. But it's really, really a nice setup. And I'm very glad. By the way, I do have to point out that John did send this to me for a potential review copy. He has another adventure, which I will take a look at another time. So I do want to point that out. This is my free and fair look at it. You saw that I did have some critiques. He just wanted me to be able to share it with folks, and so I am doing that with all of you. Up thread, multi-rules compatible adventure rather than just a whole new rule set. Yep, that's exactly it. It's multi-rules compatible. Of course, if you're running OSR, you pretty much can hack anything to go through it. It's not really that hard. It just takes a little math. I'm an American and we hate math, but that's just a thing. He's in the chat. Well, hey, John, how are you? There's John. Thank you so much. Look at you. I do want, you can put it in the chat, but I'm going to ask you in person too. What are you going to plan to do? Are you moving out away from OGL? Are you just going to keep it since they said they're going to, Watsy said they're going to keep it? Inquiring minds want to know, if you remember that old 80s cartoon or commercial. So let's take a look. This is a much shorter stream today. Yay, so far anyway. And John, Sharp Mountain Games, thank you for joining me, and thank you for sharing this cool little adventure with, it's a pickup truck with floating dish spells. What's not to love, right? This is the type of insanity that I like to go with. I might run this for my party at some point and jack up the difficulty because I'm mean. Let's take a look now at just a couple stories from my one adventure that I ran last week. My only table that ran was my basic fantasy RPG game that runs on Thursday nights. Had to reintroduce 2 characters to the party because they were absent the session before, and really the session before they had gone off on their own and we just never figured out what they were doing. Gibeon, who plays a Dwarven cleric who is worshiping this god who has reemerged, was literally kept asleep in order to keep a destroyer god at bay, but is now woken up because the destroyer god has woken up. Really kind of fun. Moving away from OGL later. Thank you, Sharp Mountain Games. So he's been having all these weird visions and stuff. And so as he was walking around this elven town that the party had been at, he saw this thing and he described it as a color that is not quite a color, which I'm thinking is Octarine, which is the 8th color from the Discworld series. If you're familiar with Terry Pratchett, he's awesome, by the way. And so he decided he's going to follow this out into the woods. And I let the player describe what he was doing and where he was going, because I had nothing in vision for him. And he said, well, I get to this pool and I feel like I need to be there, and the color kind of coalesces into this point. And I'm sitting there by the pool wondering what I should do. And so this is where I pick up. And I described it as this point of not light or not color going into the very deepest bit of the pool. And so he strips naked because that's a thing. And he decides he's going to dive into the pool. And I figured, he's like, I'm just going to wade out there. He's like, well, it's the shallowest part, it's the deepest part. It's about 8 feet deep there, and that's over your head as a dwarf. He said, no. I was on the swim team growing up, so I'm really good. It's like, so now Gibeon apparently is a swimmer. And is the truck made of mithril? The truck is not made of mithril; it's wood. Look at the cover, man. So he swims out to the center of the pool, the deepest part, and swims down towards this knot collar. And I describe it not so much as he's reaching it as he's shrinking into it. He then has this sensation of falling and just falls and falls and falls. And finally, he lands with a not quite a hard thud, but not a gentle one either, on his feet, even though he was going down. And he sees this valley with steep, steep, steep mountains on either side. A small road, a narrow road going down through the center of it, where there's a mountain stream with a lot of runoff passing through. Even though it's fall at this point, it's still flowing very, very well. It seems to be this very idyllic place. The climate is very unnaturally warm for having these sharp mountains nearby. You expect it to be much more of an alpine type climate. He looks and he sees what seems to be the remains of a village, which might have recently been destroyed because there are pillars and columns of smoke coming up after it. And he looks across the valley, and way down the way, he sees this ancient marble temple that seems to be in good repair. And on a hill all around it are these short trees with reddish fruit that he can see being borne on its branches. And as he's looking and trying to figure out what he's doing, he feels someone come up to him who just looks, turns him to his side, reaches up against his face, and she's got blood all over her. And she looks at him. It's a dwarf. And she goes, "Run! Danger!" And at that moment, he gets sucked back through the light. He pops up at the surface of the pool, and he swims back to the shore, but he feels up to his cheek where the woman had touched him, and there is a sticky substance on it. The blood is carried through. So this was part vision, part real. He's not sure. But he gets up and he bolts back to town. He's like, we need to figure out what's going on. This is Gibeon's style of play. He bolts back to town, but he can't find anyone. This leads us to the other character, Mad Jack, who is the newest member of the party. He had been wandering off on his own. He's not quite used to being part of a group yet. And so he came back to the inn where they were all staying, and nobody was there. And he had no idea what to do. The innkeeper did say that they'd left their equipment, their gear there. They were planning on coming back, and so they were paid up for the rest of the week, so he could just stay there if he wanted to. Mad Jack, being a person who does not like being idle, asked, "Hey, is there any work I can do for you?" So sure, the innkeeper took Mad Jack out to their storage shed for the inn and had him organize some new arrivals of like bacon and other smoked meats, and to unpack some of the new drinkware that they had gotten, because it's always breaking. It's earthenware. It just breaks. And so he's out there doing it for several hours, and Mad Jack is having a great time until this elf shows up. Now, he knows it's an elf from his plane of existence, because the elves where they are living, this elvish town, is an idea that I actually got from Old School Essentials. They're phase elves, which means they have two phases of existence, a magic using and a fighting phase. Their eyes are pure black. There's no iris or anything when they're in the magic using phase, and pure white, no iris or anything when they are in their fighting phase. And that's how you can differentiate this plane elf from a phase elf, because elves have, eyes. And this elf comes in, he's got gray eyes, and says, "Hey, do you work here?" Like, "Well, today I do." He's like, "Fine, I need you to pass on a message to the innkeeper for me." "Sure, what's that?" "The eye will blink at sunset." "Right." And we had a fun role playing where we went over that about 8 times, where he kept on getting it wrong, and the guy's getting frustrated. "Just pass on the message." So he finally passes on the message to the innkeeper, and the innkeeper's like, "Wow, I have no idea what that's about. That seems really odd." The innkeeper happens to be a phase elf, but he doesn't have actual phases. His eyes are constantly blinking between black and white. He's stuck. He can't actually exist in one phase or another. He's seen as an oddity among the people. He's reasonably well accepted in the town, but he's living in this, or runs this inn. He's just not part of the high society, right? So Eventually, Gibeon comes in. The only person he sees is Mad Jack. They have a talk about where people are. The innkeeper has no idea where these guys are. But he does say, you know what? They had talked about this bar at the other northern end of town. It's a little bit seedy. It's called the Fairy's End. They were going out there for some reason. Maybe you can go check it out. And as Gibeon's looking up at this innkeeper talking to him, he sees flash in the innkeeper's eyes, that not color, for a moment. Which Gibeon's like, But he's so fixated on finding the others to deal with his vision that he doesn't ask about it at the time. He just runs out. It's really, really interesting. And as he goes out, they're rushing out to find this bar. That's when one of the dwarves, the Agent 2, I think, shows up, and he leads them back to their compatriots. They all compare notes. And one of the things that Gibeon picks up on is these agents are shipping coffee back and forth. That's what they figured out the session before. And Gibeon apparently knows enough about coffee that he knows what type of tree it grows on and where it comes from. A reddish type of fruit that grows on short, squat trees. So now Gibeon's gone, hey, maybe this holds the answer to our question. And as he's talking about this, he asks the two dwarves, what do you know about, and he describes the valley that he had seen. And the one dwarf kind of looks at him and reaches into his pocket and throws out this metallic disc onto the table. And it's as it rotates on, Gibeon looks down and he sees the holy symbol of his original patron deity, the Lady True Silver. He actually pulled it from Forgotten Realms, so we're just calling it the Lady True Silver, not her full name. That's the dwarvish deity in this world. And he looks down and says, what? He had taken up the patronage of this other god with his original god's blessing, by the way, just so he's not changing religions with getting God's wrath on him. And he looks and he goes, what? He's like, how did you know where the first sanctuary was? This is supposed to be secret. The Order of Lady True Silver, only the most senior of dwarves ever know where the first sanctuary is. It's known to be in the mountains, but its location is kept very, very secret. And apparently Agent 1 is a guardian of this hidden valley where the first sanctuary is from. And so now Gibeon is convinced we have to go there. They're in between an adventure. They're trying to find some lost cargo at this point, or some lost shipping materials at this point. And they had a terrible, terrible time fighting a zombie magic user, not a lich. And so they're trying to rest right now. But that's kind of where we ended last week. I'm interested to see where they're going. And it's going to be fun from this point forward where we're going. Based on all the decisions that they've made, we're heading towards a much more climactic adventure. It should be a lot of fun. So that's kind of the story that I have for this week. Let's talk about what I got coming up as I try to unlock my iPad. Very good. But it's fun to tell the story. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Hopefully I'm still streaming. I haven't seen the chat going for a while. It says I'm still streaming, so there we go. So let's talk about what's going on for the channel. This past Monday, I posted my review for Savage Worlds, which is a game that my first read through I was a little bit confused by. My second read through, I was, well, this is kind of interesting. And now I'm like, I think I want to run this at some point. It's kind of a nifty game. It's a cool game. And again, my biggest differentiation is I'm kind of moving more towards theater of the mind. But if you really like battle maps and tactical battles, it's designed for that, and combat is all set up around that. So it'd be a really cool thing to work on. And I gave it a really favorable review. So if you want to watch that on my channel, please feel free to do that. I am, as I pointed out in my Savage World review, I am reading Index Card RPG at the moment. That's a little bit tougher than I thought it would be. The organization is very interesting. And the opening letter, the author calls it a glorious mess. And I think that was almost a deliberate pull through the entire system. So I'm going back and trying to relearn lingo. But it's a neat system. I do want to play it at some point. I'm also reading Numenera Destiny, which is domain level play that also apparently goes into the nature of the data sphere and crafting your own Numenera, which are essentially magic items in this game. I'm looking forward to getting through that. Numenera's got my attention. That's something I really want to play. I am also waiting patiently, not so patiently, for the print version or the print book release of Fantasy Age 2nd Edition to come out. I had the PDF. I think I looked at it on one of my earlier streams with Skipping Lunch, but it's a very heavy layout and it doesn't work as a PDF. I need to see it in print. I've seen Green Ronin's books in person, and I think it works much better for an in-person book. So I'm hoping for that to get released, hopefully before the end of the summer. I can take it with me on vacation. It would be fun to have to read. So I'm waiting for that. My next review, however, is probably going to be a look at Dungeon Alchemist, because they have released in the past couple of months their cave building tool, which is, I really think it's best of class. It is really cool. It creates these fantastic looking maps. It's really, really fast. I should try to run it without my external GPU to see how fast it actually is, but it's really fast with my external GPU. It's utterly beautiful, and now that it's built into the application itself, when you export a VTT using the cave builder, it actually puts the walls in for you, so I don't have to draw them myself. So I can't wait to show that off. It's a lot of fun. Dungeon Alchemist is worth picking up even if you're not going to use it to make a lot of maps. For outdoor maps and changing terrain types, it's really stellar. And then for its different rooms and things, it's really good. Right now, its biggest knock is that it's limited in the types of rooms and resources that it has. It's fantasy only, and it's a very limited stock of rooms that you can do. But man, you can create some beautiful stuff with it, and it doesn't take a very long time. So I'm looking forward to showing that with all of you. And that is kind of where I am at this point. Let's look at the chat for a second. Just perusing your drive-through page. We'll take a deeper dive. Okay, thanks, Mage, for looking at Sharp Mountain Games drive-through. Very good. And King Eric wants to ask, for Savage Worlds, can you use minis or standees with Savage Worlds, or is it all theater of the mind? Savage World is assuming that you are using miniatures of some kind. So it is full-on tactical. And all the combat rules and everything is all assuming that you have minis on the table of some kind, even if you're just moving dice around. So yeah, it's not accepted, or it's not that you can. It's built in that way. It's more you're hacking it to play theater of the mind, which I think everybody can do if you try hard enough, right? So that's kind of for that. Thanks for the question, Eric. That's really good. But let's talk about some other things. If you would like to continue to help out the channel, please like this video, leave a comment, maybe after it goes down and comes up as video on demand later. Share it with other folks who you think might find it interesting. All that stuff really helps me. I can say that the YouTube algorithm has been really brutal as of late. I'm not the only person in my sphere of different YouTubers that is saying that. And so views and subscriptions and traffic have all gone way down for some reason. Maybe it's just because I switched to this live format and it's recalculating the algorithm for me. I have no idea. But liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing, that all helps me out. Keeps me encouraged. All your comments here also keep me encouraged. So thank you so much. It's nice to know folks are watching. I'm always glad for purchases from my shop. Let me see if I can bring that up really quick. Do I have it? I don't have a button for it, but here is my shop. So got some cool items on it, including the motto, roll some dice, worlds are waiting, with the DM Tales logo, and some mugs that have different cool things on it. I try to create different slogans. I'm also going to create one for Happy Gaming Everyone pretty soon. But purchases on my store all go to help support my hobby channel, the channel, or my midlife crisis, depending on how you want to describe it. But it really does help out. Thank you. And if you do want to consider joining my Patreon, I don't ever hard press that. I just want to put it out because it does help. It keeps the lights on for things like the website and hosting, and makes me able to imagine new things for the channel, and keeps the reviews coming. That's always fun. And if you are a publisher and you're watching this and you're looking for folks to review something you are doing, feel free to contact me through my website, dmtales.com. Would love to have a chat about whether or not I'm the type of reviewer that you want for your product. I don't always assume that I am. So that's what I got going for skipping lunch this week at 12 o'clock, and we got done. I am seeing other channels rocking up an upward sub, but not putting any content at all. I don't know how the YouTube channel works, Mage. I really don't. Happy Habit Channel Midlife Crisis Accurate. Exactly. YouTube channel, YouTubing and tabletop role playing games are a habit, probably maybe a vice, I don't know, a hobby, a pastime, and a midlife crisis all rolled into one. It's a psychological perfect storm type deal going on. It's a lot of fun. Have I, Eric? You want to know about the new Cobalt press releases? I did talk about that at the beginning. They're up over $800,000. You want to give me a real quick look at the Tales of the Valiant Kickstarter. Let's take a look at what they are currently at with their Kickstarter and how they're doing. They have $965,000 pledged to their Kickstarter right now, with 23 days to go. Excuse me, they just went up to 804.13. So I think right now for the Kobold Press Tales of the Valiant, the question is not if they're going to reach $1 million, it's how much over $1 million they're actually going to get. So I'm happy for them. I'm really happy that folks who want to play 5e will have this path forward and be able to onboard people without feeling like they have to, pay WotC's tithe, which is really cool. No problem. It's a lifestyle. Yes, Mage. Tabletop role-playing games is a lifestyle. And that's what I've got going on. Thank you, everyone, for watching live. For all of you who are coming in later, I try to do these on Thursday. Today is Wednesday due to a schedule conflict. Over the summer, I have no idea what I'm going to do because I am going to be on vacation trying to rest. And if I tell my wife I'm going to go do work for an hour, she might pull my hair out as a lesson because I'm a little bit stressed recently. As you might have known, because I started my stream an hour early last week because I misread a digital clock. But so this is where I try to stream for that. I try to have my reviews come up at least once a week and do some other cool stuff like shorts. It's been a lot of fun. This has been a great habit, perfect storm lifestyle, whatever you call it for that. And it is nice to be monetized. I just hit my second $100 payout, which allows me to do things like support more Kickstarters. This is a great fun for me. Thank you for being on the ride. And until we see each other again, folks, happy playing, everyone.